So I've gotten a few requests to do a sort of how-to series on how I draw, how I do art. And honestly, I don't think I'm qualified to teach anybody anything. I've never taken like a formal art class like in college or anything. I took like mandatory art class, quote, quote, in high school. You know, you have to take like art and music and stuff. Well, I did that, but I've never really had any formal instruction. So I don't know, I feel like I'm not really qualified to teach anybody anything. So I don't know if I want to do that kind of a thing, but what I did think was maybe you could come and learn along with me. Because definitely, always, very constantly learning and improving art. I'm especially bad at filling sketchbooks. Like actually here, I'll give you an example. So this is the sketchbook that I painted the cover of a couple of weeks ago. And I've done some things in it, right? Now, please excuse what you're about to see. Most of it is not good. It's just very not good. I don't do nice looking things in sketchbooks. I usually use a sketchbook to plan something or like get my head around an idea and then move on to something else. So I guess that's what I really want to do. I really want to make a sketchbook that looks nice. I follow, among other artists, the one that comes to mind immediately is Drawing with Waffles. On that channel, Rin does a really great job sketching. Like her sketchbook pages, when she fills a sketchbook spread, I love those videos. They're so fun to watch. The finished product always looks so cool because there's like a bunch of sketches, but then she'll like refine one or two of the drawings, and it's just, she does it in a way that I really enjoy looking at, that's very visually interesting. And I don't know how to do that. I don't do that. I either do really rough, ugly things, or I complete something and make it look pretty. There's no like in between, like I don't allow sketches to mingle with finished things, and so I never get through a sketchbook. I get very frustrated. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I'm stalling because I don't want to show this to you, but let's flip through this really quick. So yeah, that's a jackalope. This is a raven I did with some pearlescent watercolors. You may have seen that on my Instagram. I think I posted a video of the color shift. This was concept for, you know, my Maleficent doll repaint. This was, I was sketching out a concept for her clothes. This is an owl. I don't know, I just felt like doing an owl. So I did an owl, but you see, like, this is sort of still a sketchy thing up here, but like most of the page is a finished thing. You know, like I came in back and I painted it, and it's just one pretty big piece. It's not like a bunch of sketches together or anything. This was the prototype for my one color challenge, where I picked a single Copic marker, chamois it ended up being. And I just really roughly sketched a couple different poses and decided I like this one and moved on. This is one of my original characters. His name is Stitch. But it's, again, just really quick, fast, concept-y kind of things. It's not really, I don't know, it's not like a polished, finished, put-together looking page, I guess. This is when I was trying to get in the mood for Mermaid. I was just doing really quick, like, pose sketches. Like a bunch of different kinds, just different sketches of different poses, different kinds of mermaids, different ideas, just to get me in the mood for Mermaid. And this I went in with a ballpoint pen, and it's terrible because you can't erase the ballpoint pen. Haha. This was the sketch for my Nightmare Before Christmas Hydro Flask video, if you saw that. Just, again, really quick, it's a bunch of shapes. There's the logo. This is the curly hill with Oogie Boogie's face on it. This is supposed to be Lock, Shock, and Barrel. It's literally a rectangle with 3 circles over it. You know, it's just very loose, there's not enough detail. I know what it is because it's just a planning page, but my sketchbooks aren't fun to look through, I guess is what I'm saying. Here are sketches for the phone case that I made for my mother for her birthday or Mother's Day, one of those. This was when I was trying to figure out what I wanted on the cover of my Create This Book 2. I had planned on doing 4 concepts. I did this one and I super liked it, and I tried to move on, but I decided I liked this one, so I just kept it. These were the real quick concepts for my Posca art. If you saw that video when I got some 3M Posca markers, I sketched out really quick just what I was going to draw on each page, but again, really rough. Here's the concept for the girl that I drew, and then there's the concept for the hand lettering quote that I did. There's Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin was another one. Here's, you know, the cabins with the different seasons. I only sketched out 2 of them. I didn't even sketch the 2 middle ones. It just jumped right into the picture. All right. So as you can see, my sketchbook isn't fun to flip through, but I want to make a sketchbook that's fun to flip through. So I guess that's the whole point of this video, is I want to learn how to make a sketchbook that kind of showcases my art, I guess, but in a fun and kind of interesting way where you can see processes and yet it's still interesting and engaging enough to look at that you'll want to flip through it. So yeah, I am just going to start doing some research and seeing what I find and, you know, how that works out. In case you're wondering, this is my Crescent Render drawing pad, the one that I did a review on, drew a Neku on the first page. I thought maybe I would try to work in this so that I could add color to pages without worrying about bleeding through and not being able to use the back of pages, because these pages don't bleed. Okay, so first thing was first, I had to figure out what I was going to draw in this sketchbook. Well, of course, say it with me now, Ace can't make decisions! Ah ha 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 ha. Yeah, so I went to this site, magatsu.net, which has a lot of different prompt generators, and one of them is an art prompt generator. So I loaded it up and asked it to give me 5 prompts, with the prompt type being somewhere between simple and elaborate. I didn't want it to be too simple because I needed some solid inspiration, but I didn't want it to be so elaborate and detailed that I felt railroaded into something I wasn't interested in. These are the 5 prompts I received, and I decided to go with this one, which means it needs to be elegant and focus on a monochrome color scheme if I decide to use color. So the place where I started as far as instruction was drawing with waffles. I will link to the videos I'm talking about in the description below. Please go and watch her channel. I just love and admire her artwork so much. She deserves all of the likes and subscribes. Anyway, I mentioned that I really admire her sketchbooks and how engaging they are when she flips through them, and she happens to have a video on how she sketches and what her process is. She also has another video on how she makes her sketchbooks more engaging using graphic design principles she learned in college. Which makes me super wish I had taken some sort of art course in college for an elective or something, because just the few things that she touches on in her video briefly sound so interesting. But I digress, wasted time aside. First, her video on sketching. Most of the principles she talks about are already things that I try to do myself, such as starting off very lightly and using a lot of motion to sort of rough in shapes and slowly refine them until you create the form that you're looking for. I do that most specifically with faces. I'm much worse at doing that for bodies, When I draw, I have a really hard time visualizing how things work in my head. I can usually come up with an idea for a pose, but when it comes down to translating my pose idea from my head to the paper, I am no good at doing that off the cuff. I use a lot of reference pictures for my art. Often I'll think of a way I want the legs to be positioned and find a reference, and then I'll decide how I want a hand to be positioned and I'll find a reference for that. And then I'll find another reference for a facial expression. There honestly isn't too much art I do without some kind of reference, usually multiple references. Using references heavily often influences my art style, if you will, and I use that term very loosely because the way I draw varies very heavily depending on the reference that I'm using, actually. But that's another topic for another video in this series. If you guys are interested in more videos like this, that is. But anyway, so I don't actually usually rough out the shapes of bodies. I quite literally draw what I see, if you will, which requires me to find someone posing in just the way that I want to draw something. Or a lot of the time I either can't draw what I want, or it takes me a very long time, and a lot of erasing and redrawing and plenty of frustration. In order to fix this, I'm going to really have to practice or figure out how to go about drawing without a reference, or at least with very minimal references, but that's not what I want to focus on in this video. Like I said, that's a topic for another day. However, one thing Rin does mention in her video is that she doesn't erase the sketching lines in her art a lot of the time, unless they are too confusing or chaotic to look at. So I tried to make sure I didn't erase too much, just lines that were distracting or really confused which way an arm was going, or how a hand was positioned, things like that. In the video on how she makes her sketchbooks engaging, she has a lot of interesting and fun tips about directing someone's eye to particular sketches that you like on pages or want to showcase, and make people pay attention to without them realizing that's what you're doing. You can do this through many different ways, but it basically all boils down to adding contrast to the images that you want to stand out. For example, you can add darker lines and more detail to sketches, or you can full-on ink them to make them darker and more eye-catching. You can also add color. This is the major one I already knew about, and I am doing this video in my Crescent Render No Bleed sketchbook so that I can color with my alcohol markers without being worried about the ink bleeding through onto the back of the pages. I would have used the mixed media sketchbook I showed earlier if I were planning to use watercolor, which is another great tip in general because adding a layer of watercolor over graphite sketches stops them from smudging onto adjacent pages in sketchbooks so they don't make a huge mess, as graphite is quite prone to doing. I probably will do that in a future video, but I was really feeling like Copic marker today. Anyway, besides adding color, she also talks about adding outlines to sketches that you want to stand out or pop off the page. It's very much about making things you want to give attention to darker and letting things that maybe aren't so good or interesting stay lighter and therefore less noticeable. The other video I looked at was an old one back from when Jazza's channel was called Draw with Jazza. And it is about how to sketch and how to make your sketchbooks look flippable. That is, how to make them more interesting to flip through. He talks a lot about using toned paper and adding black and white on it because it really pops off of mid-tone paper, which is something I have dabbled with before and maybe will try again. But other than that, he talks about similar things as drawing with waffles, though he doesn't refer to them as graphic design principles. It all seems to be about making messy things neater and darkening the quote-quote good lines while allowing the less interesting or incorrect looking lines to stay light and sketchy, and highlighting sketches that you want to stand out. In particular, I also remember that he used to add a blocky dark shape around sketches that he particularly liked when he was doing his character design sessions. And yes, I used to watch those when he streamed on Twitch, and they are still my favorite videos of his to watch. And in this video, in particular,
he talks about doing that to highlight something that you like or want to give attention to. So I tried doing that here once I got to the coloring stage, adding small backgrounds to the images I wanted to be more eye-catching, and then using a white Posca pen to sort of outline them in the way that Rin suggested so that they would pop up even more off the page.
Okay, so this is the first side that I did that you saw me do all the doodles for. And I basically decided to pick a couple, in this case 2. Originally I'd only picked 1, but then I decided to like this one too, to sort of highlight and showcase. So I colored them, again, like the prompt said, I tried to use kind of the same tone. Technically I used warm gray on her hair and skin, and then I used like reddish pinks on her dress and in the background. So this was the first prompt that I tried to follow along with. It's supposed to be elegant and tone on tone. So eventually I came to the idea of like a sort of classic, simple sort of character in like a gauzy sort of drapey dress. But I didn't really like how this middle one turned out, so I tried to like sort of draw your eye more to the outsides of the page, because I also didn't really want to redraw this. This took forever. And I think part of the reason that it was so difficult for me was because I need to come up with a better way to set up my camera so that I can record my sketching process, I guess. Because having to put the camera sort of between me and my upright drawing table makes it really difficult and awkward to try and draw, because I'm almost fully at arm's length away from what I'm drawing. And it's pretty uncomfortable. So I think that's why I struggled a lot with this one that I did on camera. So once I was done, I was just gonna do the one page and sort of implement techniques that I learned, but I decided to do another page off camera to see if I did any better, because I could hold the book wherever I wanted in relation to myself. And I actually, instead of using my upright drawing table, I actually just sort of held my sketchbook up like this toward myself, and that seemed to work out just fine. And this page, I decided, so I had used my red color Eno for this page, and everything sort of had a warm hue to it, and so for the second page, you'll see I sketched in my blue color Eno to make it a sort of cool page. So yeah, let's look at that, I guess. I went with one of the other prompts for this page. It was draw an atypical portrait, or a portrait of someone who is not typical. So the first thing I thought of was drawing like a cat girl or a cat boy. Actually, the first thing I tried was a cat boy, because I wanted to try drawing a boy. But yeah, that didn't go so well, so then I just tried to draw a cat girl. She turned out much better. As you can see, she's one of the ones that's in color, so I really ended up liking her. And then after that, I actually drew this one. She is supposed to be a Bratz doll. As you can see, she has like big lips and she's kind of curvy. And I don't know, that's just, I thought of a Bratz doll since she has like the sort of cartoony proportions. She's not like a typical human being kind of person, I guess. And then I ended up drawing a Rokurokubi, which is a Japanese yokai. It's a woman with a long neck, like a demon, I guess, with a long neck. So I drew a Rokurokubi, and then when I thought of a yokai, all I could think of was during my giveaway for the gray set, I think it was day 9 with the sketching grays. I drew what I said in the video was probably some kind of a yokai whose mask became damaged, and then they couldn't hold up the illusion of being human anymore, so they were disintegrating, I guess. And since I gave that image away, I don't have that one anymore, so I decided to draw another one here since, yokai made me think of this. And then the last thing on this page I drew was this up here, this little mermaid. I put a laying down. She looks like she's either really bored or really, really hot. Like she's sitting in the sun and it's too hot or something. She's got this sort of like, expression, which I kind of like. But I figured I had put color on these two already, and I really wanted to put color on this one, so I decided I was not going to put color on this one because that would have been too much color, which is sort of like the opposite of everything I learned in the videos that I watched. As you can see, I picked out 3 images that I really liked on this page, and I inked them and colored them. I even put a little background box on this one and outlined her in white Posca, just like I did on the other page with these 2 girls. So this is definitely much better than my sketchbook pages usually are. Usually, as you saw in the beginning of the video, they're not very, there's not a lot of detail. I guess that's one of the things that I learned from doing this, is that I get bored partway through sketching. For several of these, I really had to push myself to finish the picture, like this one in particular, this the Bratz doll girl over here. I drew her pose, and I really had to fight myself to draw in facial features and a hairstyle, and I jumped over to Pinterest to get some inspiration for her outfit because I just drew the pose, and in my head, like, that was enough. I didn't need to finish it. So that's one thing I've definitely learned through this process, is that I really need to finish sketches when I start them. For some reason, I have this block in my head that the sketchbook is only for like planning, and nothing like finished or polished really should go in them. I don't know why I think that way. I guess because that's how I've always really used sketchbooks. I never, ever put color in sketchbooks unless I'm just testing something out, like testing out a color palette, for example. So, yeah, I think this exercise was reasonably successful. I think the next step in this process is going to be just to practice this, to sort of keep filling pages and keep picking a couple pictures that I like on each page and really emphasizing them. But yeah, so let me know if you like this video, if you like the idea of learning along with me, I guess. I hope that you do. This was kind of a fun video. I liked it, but also absolutely something that I can do on my own time if you are not interested in these, which is fine. That's it for this video. Please like this video if you liked this exercise, and I will see about making a series of sorts, like a mini series out of it. Maybe I'll do a different topic or a different thing that I am trying to improve each time, and we can sort of go through the process together. Subscribe if you'd be interested in that, if you like arty things. Don't forget to ring the bell so that YouTube tells you when I upload new videos, and until my next one, I will talk to all of you soon. Bye!